Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology. And this is episode 57, and today's date is June 12th, 2023. And today is a short video. I just want to quickly look at Trump and RFK Jr. and the Dow. And let's see. Kind of repeating myself, we'll look at two charts and then we'll look at forecasts, longer term forecasts for the Dow and for Bitcoin. And this is my website, astroindicator.com. If you'd like more details about other markets, I look at gold and silver and Ethereum, and on a bi-monthly basis I do updates. Okay, here's Trump's chart, and he's got, some excitement happening in his life since he was just indicted a week ago, and I wanted to point out the astrology for that event, and I'll also just maybe indicate some dates and times that you could watch out for to see that might indicate the outcome of this legal tangle that he is in. So about a week ago, if you see my cursor right there, we had Mars at 10 degrees of Leo. And so Mars, a week ago when the indictment happened, it was conjunct his natal Pluto. So again, this is the birth chart of Trump in the center. This is the transits of the planets as they are in the sky right now, and today's date is the 12th. But the indictment happened a week ago, and so if we move back just a few degrees in Leo, we had a Mars-Pluto conjunction. And to me, that does indicate, it's a battle. Mars is often contentious experiences or fights that we have in our life, or things that we are motivated to forced to do or motivated to do, and the symbols in astrology are going to change based on the context and the individual. And so in this case, the symbol is a battle between the deep state, basically, in the U.S., and that's symbolized by Pluto, at least at this point in time in Trump's chart. And so that happened, that triggered that event, Mars crossing, being in the same position as Pluto. And we're going to have to see what happens here in the future, because Mars is going to continue on and is going to pass over, conjunct his ascendant in about a month, on July 10th. Trump has Mars conjunct his ascendant. That's why he's a counterpuncher. He likes to fight back verbally, in particular. We will see more about this litigation, this court case, at that time. At least I believe, because I could see that the conjunction here a week ago coincided exactly with the indictment. And so this energy of a court battle will gain some clarity, I think, in a month's time, in some fashion, when Mars crosses over his ascendant. Well, a little bit further on in July, we'll have Venus getting very close to his ascendant, and then actually it'll station in late July, stop, at least from the standpoint of the Earth, and go into retrograde. I can't help but think that that would be a positive for Trump at that time, having a Venus station on his ascendant in late July, given this court case that he's in. So we'll have to see, but I just wanted to point these things out because to me they stood out very starkly when I looked at his chart. Other things that are happening in his chart right now is that Transit, if you look at my cursor here, the transit of Saturn is 150 degrees away from his Pluto. So that's adding stress to the situation relative to kind of the powers that be that are basically out to undermine him. And I'm not saying I'm a big Trump supporter, but to me it is sort of obvious that that is what's going on. The positives that may counterbalance some of this include the transit of up here in the ninth house. We have Jupiter going through the ninth house, which deals with law and legal matters and so forth. And Jupiter usually brings in, positive outcomes, or at least, just events tend to go our way when we're sort of under the influence of a Jupiter transit. And here we have it transiting through the house that deals with legal matters. And Trump has a strong Jupiter natally. His Jupiter is trine, is 120 degrees from his sun. I could be drawing these things a little bit more than I have been. For example, this is, I made a nice big red one. It should be green, but it is trine his sun. And, that's why everything is grandiose about Trump. Everything is the greatest. He exaggerates a lot. He's a Gemini, so he likes to tell everybody how wonderful and great and spectacular everything is. But it is a trine to his sun, and so he's a very confident person. And given that he has basically a strongly positioned Jupiter, having it now in the ninth house while he is being taken to court and prosecuted, attempted prosecution, at least the probabilities seem higher that this will have a positive outcome for him. But I do not know the timeline of this proceedings. So I would say, within the next 6 months or so, that this is a positive for Trump. So I just wanted to point that out because to me, the triggering of this whole event with the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter a week ago was just so precise that it really, it's one of those things that you see in astrology and it just continues to kind of amaze me. So let's move on. So here is RFK's chart, which is incomplete because I do not have his exact birth time. If anyone out there does, please email me, but I did some homework and I couldn't find it, so we're limited to a certain extent not knowing his birth time. We have his birth date, January 17th, 54, and he's a Capricorn with a number of planets in Capricorn. This is a very responsible person, and maybe it took him a while to mature into that degree of responsibility. But this is a chart of someone who can be a very good leader within government, and here he's running for president, and there's a big issue that he may be facing increasingly over the next few months, and I just wanted to point that out because where you see my cursor here is that this is his natal chart in the middle. He has Pluto transiting and now in retrograde. You see it's in red, and it's retrograde and coming back to conjunct his sun. And then it'll move forward and it'll hit Mercury again. And this will happen this fall, in particular around October. And normally in a normal individual's life, there's a sense of a crisis or intensity is taking place about what my existential purpose in life really is. And that may be happening to RFK as well. It probably is. But in addition, he has set himself up against the corruption in the world, and whether it's dealing with the pharmaceutical companies or just the media and so forth. And that energy, that kind of dark, corrupt energy, is represented by Pluto in general. And it stands out with a public figure like RFK, much more so than the average Joe. And here, particularly into the fall, this confrontation will increase for him, or the intensity of it will increase for him. And so I hope nothing horrible happens. I hope I hope his individuality can be maintained, and he can stand up and express himself clearly against these forces, and that may kind of come to a head in some fashion in this fall. And so I just wanted to point that out, that he's going through a very critical astrological time period for him this year, and particularly in October. Now, on a positive note, he does have some things that do counterbalance this, particularly into next year, into 2024. And here, I'm going to get my red marker out. I wish I would have changed the color, but bear with me. So he has Jupiter right here. This is the transit of Jupiter, okay? And it is at 5 degrees Taurus. Well, increasingly next year, it is going to be in a harmonious aspect with Venus, Sun, and Mercury, okay? But that's after all this Pluto business that I was just describing to you. So, hopefully he can weather the storm this fall in whatever form that might take, because next year he has a much more kind of powerful positive energy on the horizon, particularly starting in about April. And I see it primarily due to this Jupiter energy strengthening his Capricorn characteristics that he has natally. Okay, let's move on, and I'm going to do a little bit different forecasting format than I normally do on my website, and just put a calendar up here so you can quickly see what I'm talking about over a 6-month period. We're looking at the Tao, and I'm going to flip on and off between this presentation software that I'm using here and go to my trading software, so it'll look a little bit herky-jerky here in a minute, but I want to make my points. So in the Tao, if you look at my cursor up at the top here, after September, and here we are, this is June, July, August, here we get into December, and these red lines on my calendar represent Saturn energy strengthening in the Tao's astrology, okay, which normally is not good. Normally it creates increased fear, uncertainty, doubt, disappointment, and so forth. Anxiety, and when you have those elevated in a market, that usually indicates that the market is losing steam at the minimum and likely heading lower. So I wanted to point that out, that the Saturn energy, and it lasts a long time in the Tao's astrology, is increasing. Now, a lot of on my website, I'll be pointing out sort of periods of time during this 6-month period where the Saturn energy will be offset with other elements in astrology. And so, nothing's going to head straight down, but there'll be time periods where there will be bullish energy during these months. But overall, this is going to be a Saturn period for the Tao. Now, in the short term, this is where we are right here. That blue square is today, and we had this was, I've been forecasting this for a couple of months on my website, and I knew that this was likely to be a bullish energy. Well, this color brings in more volatility, and we have it coming up later in June, we have it in August, and we have it in September. These are volatility, surprising outcomes, astrology. This green is also kind of a bullish element, which in the Tao here is related to, it's related to, bullish aspects taking place between the sun and some of the transits. So overall, the market may stay buoyant, may stay elevated for a couple months. This is my forecast. And then when we get into August, particularly late August, we could see a real shift. Now, I'm going to shift out of my presentation software for a moment, and we'll look at how I mark this up on a trading chart on my website. So bear with me while it looks a little odd here for just a second. So here we are, we're looking at the Dow Jones Industrials chart, and all the vertical lines here are key important astrology dates that I've marked onto the chart, and we're incorporated into what's called the technical analytical elements of moving averages, and momentum indicators are down here and so forth. Well, very often you see important changes in the price of a market when these astrology dates come up. And this green one that you see right here where my cursor is, that green one was today, and it established the Dow as being moving above this white trend line, which is fairly important. However, it didn't get above, maybe all of these yellow gold horizontal lines yet. Okay? It really needs to clear these two gold lines in order for, a real bullish run higher to take place. Now, this is going to be interesting because approaching on later this week, on Thursday the 15th, and then a week later on the 22nd, we have these red lines coming into play, which on that calendar we just looked at, which we'll look at again, were these volatility energies. So very often these red lines, when they appear, usually either we get a very noticeable extenuation of a move in a market or a reversal. Now, when we look down here at the momentum lines, they're not purely, they're not completely overbought yet, okay? We have a little more headroom before maybe we start looking for a downturn. But by the time we get to, let's say, Thursday the 22nd of June, this market may be decidedly overbought, and so possibly the second, in 10 days or so, is when we could get a pullback. However, looking ahead, we have other astro dates coming up, which historically are bullish. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my calendar right here, and what happened here? I goofed. Where's my calendar? Here we go. So this is what we were just looking at. This is the bullish move today. Here are those two volatility dates, which I think the June 22nd date could be a reversal. But overriding that, generally speaking, for the next month, a little over a month, the market has supportive astrological energy to stay at a high level. Okay, that's basically what I'm pointing out between these two formats that I'm using. And then when we move ahead a little bit, the bullishness tends to decrease, and we get more of this Saturn worry, anxiety, fear energy entering into things, and we'll see how that plays out. Okay, well, let's look at Bitcoin. This is the forecast for Bitcoin, and oddly enough, it's got similar things going on. Now, in this case, the red lines are represented in the Bitcoin astrology as a Pluto transit versus in the Tao represented Saturn. We have a Pluto transit in Bitcoin, which is conjunct Mercury and Jupiter. Okay, and that could manifest in a number of ways, but what's going on in the crypto market? Right now, the crypto market is getting hammered by the SEC as it sues Coinbase and Binance. So this is an authoritarian body that's basically coming down on the crypto market, and I won't go into all the details, but the two lawsuits are quite different between Binance and Coinbase. But essentially, it's a Plutonian energy. The SEC is playing hardball in a way that some people feel is not quite on the up and up with the crypto market in general. And I see that as a Pluto energy, okay? And it's wreaking havoc on the altcoin market, but not so much for Bitcoin. And the next 2 days in Bitcoin are going to be very interesting. Like Bitcoin kind of held its ground today, while a lot of the alt markets over the weekend got creamed. And Bitcoin and Ethereum kind of together have bullish energies for 2 days in a row. On top of that, when we look at Bitcoin, we have stronger Jupiter energy taking place for the next 2 months, which may counterbalance or offset this Pluto repressive, destructive force that I see represented as the SEC. However, after these 2 months, that Pluto energy continues through the fall. Now, my forecast here is that where we're at over the next 2 months may shape and dictate how the rest of these months express themselves with this Pluto energy. So my forecast is shaped basically on how the Bitcoin market in particular stands up over the next 2 months. In fact, the next 2 days may be quite revealing, because we have Jupiter over the next month or so interacting with Bitcoin's ascendant and sun, and we have these key dates that historically are bullish today and tomorrow with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I could point that out real quickly to you as well, and show you how that stands up in the Bitcoin chart, because this is what you would see on my website. I give the subscriber to my website a month and a half, if they exist, sometimes they don't exist, a month and a half of key dates to make note of, because oftentimes there will be turns in the market when those key dates come up. And sometimes they can just act as offsets to, let's say, negative fundamental news. And so they can affect how the market is responding to news, which is something that most good traders, investors are very keen on. But if you don't know what the astrology is, it's just a whole body of information that is not available to someone who's analyzing a market. So here we are. This is tomorrow, where my cursor is. This is where we close today, June 12th. Isn't it the 12th? Yeah, June 12th. 13th is going to be an interesting day. And then on a week later, we have another bullish key date, astrological date coming up. So even though kind of horrific things are happening in the regulatory world because of what seem like unfair actions by the Securities and Exchange Commission, we do have some bullish energy that may support and help Bitcoin weather the storm here. And so we'll see how this plays out, but it's always necessary to incorporate and factor in the technical elements when assessing these things. And so, like right now, Bitcoin is trading in between this kind of declining wedge, declining triangle pattern. And normally, if a market breaks above this pattern, it has a lot of energy to go higher. But we will see here, okay? The fact that it traded even today and almost closed with no gain while other markets were tanking over the weekend and today is a positive. Okay, let's get back to my chart here. And so we were there, we looked at the Dow, we looked at that, and I think we're about done. But I wanted to experiment today with this type of format of looking 6 months ahead, which I don't often do on my website. I'm normally looking a month and a half ahead with the astrology dates that I include in the subscription, which is only $5 a month, which is a pretty good deal, I think. So I may experiment with this more, but that's basically it for today. I've been researching financial astrology for 25 years, probably at least. I have a master's degree in psychology. This is my email if you have any questions, and that is my website. So thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll start doing these a little bit more often. Bye for now.